Hello and welcome to today's Office Hours presentation. This is your host, Paul Hoyt. Our Office Hours presentation is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we hold every Monday at noon Pacific time. All these recordings, slides, and exercises are archived in our members area, and all the recordings are available on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons we do these Office Hours presentations is that we know that being a successful small business owner can be a great experience, but it's tough. You need education, training, tools, and team to be successful, and we want you to get to know us, because when you get to know us, you'll know that first and most importantly, we really do care about you. We want you to be successful in every area of your life, whatever that means to you. We want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day. Our passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America. And our vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and enjoy greater harmony and balance in their lives. If you find these Office Hours presentations to be beneficial to you, please pass the word. You can sign up and watch them for free. And of course, the recordings are currently available free as well. I think everyone listening to the call knows some other business owner who is challenged in business or somebody who wants to start in a business, and we're honored to support them however we can. And these Office Hours presentation are a pretty darn good way to get education and training that people need. Our Office Hours agenda is usually an in-depth discussion of a business success principle, and then closing remarks, special offers, and an invitation for next week's session, and then open Q&A and coaching. Today is a special Office Hours. Once a month we do a live group coaching where there is no formal presentation as such. We do some reminders of previous presentations, but there's no new material presented. And then we go right into open Q&A and coaching. And as a reminder, the best question or the best comment of today wins a prize, and that prize kind of depends on who you are and what's right for you. In some cases, we offer a free hour or so coaching session. In other cases, we offer other things of value too. In the week, we invite you to join us in the Awakened CEO communities on both LinkedIn and Facebook, where we publish a business success principle a day about 4 days a week, and an energy of the day posting every day on Facebook, which I've done every day for the last 1,073 days in a row. Today's topic is on open Q&A and group coaching, as I said. We usually relate the subject matter of the day to one or more of the key performance areas of success, and today it's about anything and everything. You're welcome to ask questions on leadership, marketing, sales, financial management, product development, operations, customer service, anything that comes up for you, and we'll do our best to share an experience or to share an opinion or some facts that we know about that particular area. And as always, we relate the subject matter of the day to our Awakened CEO system, where we talk about 3 different levels of performance in your mindset, your methods, and your momentum, and 3 focus areas for business growth, professional growth, and personal growth. Together, they combine into this 9-cell matrix we call the Awakened CEO system. And our belief is, our offer to you is, that if you focus on being competent or even excellent in each one of these 9 areas, your business and your entire life will run a lot better. It's really important for you to have a great mindset with regards to business growth, professional growth, and personal growth. It's important for you to have methods in place for business growth, professional growth, and personal growth, and it's important for you to get into momentum and build the momentum over time in each one of those 3 areas as well. Let's take just a couple of minutes and remind you of some of the previous Office Hours that we have done in between now and the previous group coaching session. Office Hours number 137 was on working with contractors, 138 was on cash flow secrets, and 139 was on the 9 C's of entrepreneurships. Real briefly, number 137 on working with contractors was about teamwork, contractors versus employees, some common mistakes I've seen people make when it comes to engaging with contractors, the perfect storm, best practices, and we sum it all up to the bottom line. Let's quickly review some of those common mistakes as well before we get started here. First of all, a common mistake is picking the wrong expert, of thinking that somebody who says they're an expert is really an expert and not applying the 3-expert rule by going out and making sure you've talked to multiple experts before you decide the one that's just right for you. Some people pay too much. Many contractors lead with a high price hoping that you will pay it, but if you don't ask the question of, can you come down a little bit on that price, you're never going to find out what can be an effective price for you. Many contractors only offer a partial solution and frankly are not really interested in your long-term success. They're only interested in getting your check and getting your credit card so you'll buy their stuff, knowing that their stuff is valuable and without any consideration as to whether or not that's really the right thing for you to do in your business. Some contractors have bad agreements. It's your responsibility to make sure that you have good ones. Some contractors offer extremely large long-term agreements as the right place to start with them, where I think exactly the opposite is true, that you need to start out with a 90-day probationary period, as I'll talk about here in a little bit. And one other common mistake I see people make is no due diligence, and then as we talked earlier, being out of sequence. What I really advise is that you apply the best practices that we see with our military and with large corporations when it comes to hiring their employees, and apply that same practice, that same process to hiring contractors. And that means making sure that you define the job and know exactly what needs to be done. Make sure that you have effective interviews with multiple candidates. Do tests and checks. In other words, do your due diligence and background checks as appropriate. Make sure that you have probationary hiring so that you can get out of a deal 30, 60, 90 days into it if you find out it's not the right thing for you long term. Make sure that you have proper onboarding and training of your contractors and really pay attention to those first few weeks of the engagement. And the last one is manage the relationship over time successfully as well. Reminder, it's your responsibility to determine your overall budget, to define the sequence for building your business, and to make good decisions about who you hire, when you hire them, how much you pay them, and how you manage the engagement. Office Hours 138 was on cash flow secrets. In cash flow secrets, we talked about the importance of cash, the cash flow statement itself, multiple sources of cash and uses of cash that most businesses have, best practices in forecasting cash, and offered a lot of tips to increasing cash in your company. Let's review just a little bit on the importance of cash. Cash really is the lifeblood of your company. I know that you've heard the expression cash is king. Well, one dramatic way of positioning the importance of cash is to really think about that as lifeblood. In other words, you die when you run out of cash. Just like, and pardon me for being gruesome here on this Halloween, but if you have a major injury, trauma surgeons and those experienced in first aid will tell you that one of the first things that you have to do is to make sure that somebody can breathe and make sure that they're not losing blood. Because if you lose too much, you will pass away from a lack of blood in your system. And your business can die if you don't have an adequate amount of cash moving into and through your business. It really is the energy flow of your company. And one interesting thing is that you can run out of cash even while you're making a paper profit. We did talk a lot about the importance of cash and what especially that last one meant there. We also offered a lot of examples on the cash flow statement itself, where we talk about multiple uses of funds and multiple sources of funds and how important it is for you on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, and for some companies on a daily basis to make sure you're managing the ins and outs of cash into your business and through your business to keep the business going. Because there are a lot of nasty surprises along the way. Deals that fall through, checks that bounce, customers that don't pay, employees that leave unexpectedly, supplier price increases, equipment that may need repair or replacement, and tax liabilities. But wait, there's more. The suppliers who don't deliver, unexpected travel requests, impulse purchases, which you can control completely, marketing investments that don't work, R&D setbacks, economic and competitive pressures, and even legislation. Yep, our Senate, our Congress, local, state, representatives can pass legislation that increase your taxes or prevent you from taking a deduction or require you in some way to spend money on something that really can reduce the cash in your business. So we urge everybody to focus in on cash flow. You know, one of the things that we do here at the Hoyt Management Group is offer CFO services to some companies, and that's one of the things we pay particular attention to, is the cash flow in and out of your business. You know, you can only borrow money to help make up deficits in cash flow for so long before you run out of credit and before you're unable to accomplish debt service, at which point in time your business can really be in significant trouble. Last week's office hours was on what's your reason, the 9 C's of entrepreneurship. And we covered the reasons why people get into business and why people stay into business in the context of these 9 C's. We talked about cash, control, creativity, and calling. We talked about contribution, cheers, connections, challenge, and chance. And then we summed it all up to the bottom line. These last 5 are fairly minor ones. Contribution. Some people just want to make a contribution to society. Some people want approval, which we call the cheers. You know, they want the applause of the audience. They want to be known as a small business owner because of the pride and self-image that it helps them maintain. Some people want connections. They just want to control who they work with. Some people just want the challenge. It becomes what's next for them, much like, you know, jumping out of an airplane with a parachute. And some people are accidental entrepreneurs. It just happened by chance. But by far the 4 biggest reasons that people get into business and stay into business are cash, control, creativity, and calling. Cash means they want to have the opportunity at massive wealth. They just want to see what the possibilities are. Control, it means that they want to be their own boss. They're tired of their companies making decisions which have a negative impact on their well-being, and they want to be the one to make all of the decisions so that they can take care of themselves. It helps them be safer. Some people just want to do their own thing. They're highly creative people and they feel stymied. They feel held back within a corporation because they can't leverage their creativity. And some people, being in business really is a calling. They wake up in the middle of the night with some sort of a vision or a dream and they feel like, I just have to do this thing. I don't know why. It's not about the cash. It's not about me wanting to be creative. It's not about me wanting to be in control. I just have to do this thing. I literally got a message from God and I was told that I need to do this thing. The big question is, you know, what are your reasons? What are your reasons for getting into business in the first place? And what are your reasons for staying into business? And are they good reasons? Or should you shut it down and go get a job with somebody else or enter into a partnership with somebody else? Because it helps you take care of yourself and helps you take care of your family, helps you experience greater health and happiness in your life than does having your own business. So it's real important that you do that personal self-examination every once in a while. And as with all these other things, if there's something that we can help you do, if there's a way that we can support you through our professional coaching and advising services, we'd be happy to do that. So those are the 3 previous office hours. Office hours 137 on working with contractors, office hours 138 on cash flow secrets, and office hours 139 on the 9 C's of entrepreneurship. Hopefully that stimulated your brains a little bit and you're eager and ready to come up with some questions, because that's where we are right now. Let's jump into the open Q&A. And as a reminder, by the way, you are always welcome to send in these questions to our email ahead of time, although I don't ever check email during the course of one of these presentations. You can certainly send them in up to an hour or so ahead of time and we'll put them on the list. And fortunately, some people have done exactly that. So for those of you who are on the call, you're welcome to type a question into the control box. And for those of you who are listening over the phone, well, next time send in your question via email. I know we did get some questions via email this time. So Stephanie, let's jump in with the questions. What questions did we get via email today?
Okay. First one. I really stink at finances. I can't even keep up with balancing my checkbook. So cash flow is almost always an issue. I definitely need help, but on a small budget. What should I do?
I think there's a lot of education and training programs out there that will be beneficial. Some do the how-to, and some are really focused on the mindset of keeping track of stuff. Usually when we have some hesitation and resistance towards doing something, it's because we're afraid of the outcome. And in this particular case, if you're afraid to pay those bills, if you're afraid to balance the checkbook, if you're afraid to look at the bank balance, that can really cause you a lot of problems. But unfortunately, those problems are not going to go away with time. It's like, weighing too much or not having a great exercise or diet routine, failing to address the issue of stepping out in courage and doing a little something today to address that issue, it really can be detrimental long term. So my encouragement to you is, number one, is to recognize what the source of that hesitation or resistance is. It's some sort of a fear. Secondly, to make sure that you understand that by failing to deal with it today, it's not going to get better. Some things heal themselves over time, and some things never heal themselves over time. And finances is a classic case of a stitch in time saves 9, which means that if you do a little bit of repair work today, you can avoid a lot of repair work down the road. And third, I would say that, get some coaching and counseling. Get somebody to hold your hand, get somebody to assist you in that process. If it's something that really, really causes a lot of hesitation and resistance, find a kind, nurturing person that you can talk to, who you can be honest with and say, this scares the crap out of me. I could use a little support right now, who can help you through that while you take a big breath and take one step in a direction of fixing the problem. And what I find in my own personal life and what I talk to when I coach other people as well, is it's that first step that's the most difficult. When we take that first step, the second step is usually a little easier. The third step is a little bit easier. And once we get into it, almost always we find that it wasn't as difficult as we thought that it was going to be, that it's not as scary as we thought that it was going to be. We get through the other end of it and we're done with it, and it feels a lot better. So there's a lot of mindsets, a lot of pictures that you can take in your own mind to make that happen. You can think of it like, I'm just going to put one toe in the water and see how it feels, and then I'll see whether I want to put my foot in and whether or not I want to get into the whole thing. Or you can think about it as, the dentist just told me I needed a root canal, and I can either do it today or I can do it in 4 weeks from today. What would I rather do? Almost everybody, by the way, if you give them that analogy of either doing it today or doing it 4 weeks from now, will choose to do it today and get it over with. So find an analogy, work with your coach that helps you take those first steps, that helps you courageously step into your courage and step into your powerful positive energy and get the job done that you need to get done. And if there's ways that we can support you, I would be eager to do that as well. Stephanie, thank you for that question. Any questions or comments on your end? Or just the next question.
Yeah, actually that one hits close to home for me, so I'm glad for that comment or for that support.
Okay, awesome.
Another question.
Okay.
This one from one of our listeners.
Okay.
How do you determine the value versus the risk of rebranding? We've rebranded 3 times in 15 years and still don't think we have the right brand, and we're inclined to do it again.
That's an interesting question, and one that hits home for me too. We've rebranded several times throughout the years. First of all, I was Hoyt Management Group, and then we became Hoyt Group, and then I branded under Paul Hoyt, and then I branded under the Awakened CEO brand, and now we're kind of differentiating in between Paul Hoyt as my personal brand and the Awakened CEO system that we have developed as the brand for that particular system. And so I really do appreciate that question. It brings me to think about, in marketing and sales, I like to use a fisherman analogy a lot that says that if things are not working out the way that you really want them to work out, it's either one of 3 problems. You're either fishing in the wrong pond, you don't have the right bait, or you're not a skilled fisherman. Fishing, sometimes you can, if you throw the right bait out in the wrong pond, you're not going to get a bite. And if you throw the right bait out in the right pond, but you don't have the right marketing messages associated with it, you're not skillful at closing business, that can be the real problem as well. So we take a look at whether or not the brand is generating a sufficient amount of leads into our business, or whether or not the brand is really confusing. Because the more made up a brand is, like Google or Kleenex or Xerox, the more time and money that we have to spend on educating the public as to what the brand means. So there's one a company that spent millions and millions of dollars on establishing a brand just in the last couple of years. It's a company that specializes in travel called Trivago. Trivago means nothing. At least it didn't mean anything to me. But now I've heard it on TV 100 times. And so now when I hear the name Trivago, it automatically means hotels or something to do with travel. I think it's just a made-up word. So the more you have a made-up word, generally speaking, the higher cost it has to implementing a brand in your business. So as you think about changing brands, think about the cost of reestablishing that brand in your marketplace, because it's not a trivial cost. It's not a $1,000 deal. It might not be a $5,000 or a $10,000 deal. It might be something that costs you $50,000 or $100,000 and takes 3 to 6 months in order to effectively put into your marketplace. Another question before then is to say, have I done everything to get my marketing messaging right around my current brand? Because it may well be the core messaging and the way that you're expressing the value that you bring to your marketplace. It's not the name of the company or the logo that you have or the colors that you are using. It could be the messaging around the value that you bring. And if messaging is the problem, then changing the brand isn't going to help anything, because you'll have poor messaging with the new brand, just like you had poor messaging with the existing brand. So it could be that it's the messaging that you have and your approach to generating leads and finding people who are interested in the value that you bring that's the problem, and not the brand itself. Another way of looking at that is, if the current brand and if the current messaging is bringing in a sufficient number of leads and people for you to talk to, then it could be your salesmanship. It could be your ability to actually make your offer to the marketplace, to establish trust and rapport, to find out the needs and the wants of the customer, to make your value proposition to them about how you can help them get what they told you they want in your life, and your ability to ask for the order and handle common objections. So it can be any one of those three things. Before you go into the expense of rebranding, I encourage you to take a look at your lead generation strategies, specifically your messages, and the way that you are consistently putting your messages out to a receptive marketplace, and look at your salesmanship as well. If you haven't had sales training in a while, then I strongly recommend that you engage with some sort of sales training. My belief is, by the way, that you should have sales training at least once a year, if not multiple times throughout the year, just to keep yourself in the conversation and to keep your mindset flowing on the importance of sales and sales processes. To hear these truths from many different sales trainers, you'll pick up something that will really help your game every single time that you do. So we want to stay in the game with sales training and having a positive mindset about helping us to understand our customers, our client, our prospects' needs, and making a good value proposition to them. Again, it's always all about the customer. It's about helping them get what they already want, helping them accomplish what they're already set out to achieve, that helps them be ready to write a check in our favor. And hopefully that was helpful for you. And of course, if there's anything we can do, we're happy to support you in the marketing messaging and in the salesmanship. We are okay when it comes to branding, but we typically go through other parties to help make sure we do the graphics part of the branding. We're experts in marketing messaging, marketing positioning, marketing, in some levels of marketing strategy, but we have some really good people that we work with to help with the branding and help with the effective placement of marketing messages out into hopefully a very receptive marketplace. Hopefully that was helpful. Any follow-up questions or any other things?
Next question.
Okay. Awesome.
I've heard that contractors legally have to work with more than just one contract to fulfill the legal requirements of being a contractor. Is that true?
No, it's not particularly true, because some contractors will take a long-term engagement with a single client for some number of months, or even I've seen some people do it for 2 or 3 years. So there, in the office hours presentation that we did on working with contractors, we listed about 10 different things that the IRS takes a look at to decide whether or not this is a contractor relationship or an employer relationship. Having multiple clients is one of those 10 things. There are lots of other things that they take a look at as well. But I know some contractors that get out on an engagement for 12 months or for 18 months or even for a couple of years. It's fairly common in the high-tech world where somebody would take a contract for a long period of time. I've had contracts for 6 months or longer back when I was in the high-tech world 15 years or so ago. So that part of it is just one of those 10 considerations. Some of the other ones that I can remember off the top of my head are, do you have a business? Are you doing business as a sole proprietor, or do you have an LLC or a C corporation where the relationship really is a business to business instead of a business to individual relationship? Do you use your own tools and processes? Do you bring your own laptops and your own computers to the engagement, or does the company supply them for you? Because companies supply those sorts of things to their employees, but not to their contractors, typically not to their contractors. Another one is, do you have multiple clients? Another one is, do you control the actual work? Have they hired you to do a job or a project, or do they micromanage your day-to-day and hour-to-hour activities? Those are some of the ones that come into consideration. So you can have a single company as a customer when you are a contractor and not have that run afoul of the IRS for some period of time. Generally speaking, I think after about 18 months or so, the IRS particularly starts to wonder whether or not this is a contractor or an employee relationship. If you as a contractor are doing exactly the same work in exactly the same management style as existing employees do, I think that there is additional risk that the IRS would consider that to be an employment relationship. And if you as an employer or as a company are doing business with somebody else, be sure that you enter into that contractor's engagement where they understand it's their responsibility to pay their taxes, and they understand that this is an independent contractor's engagement. And be cautious of contractors who may think of themselves as employees and who really don't have the mindset of a contractor, because they could come back months later on and say, well, I was fired, I was let go, and go to their state and say, I really deserve to have unemployment compensation here because I lost my job. And in which case the state will come in and take a look at you and see whether or not that really was a contractor relationship or not. And if they determine that this person really was an employee, they thought that they were an employee, they were acting as an employee, then you could have fines or penalties associated with that relationship. So that was a long-winded answer to your question, but the answer is, the short question is, no, you can be a contractor with a single relationship with a business as long as you manage that carefully, and you'll be okay. Next question.
All right, next question. We recently moved our offices, and it has really put a lot of pressure on the whole team to adapt to new systems and surroundings. Do you have any suggestions as to how best to manage the extra stress?
Yes, I do. So when it comes to managing, first of all, congratulations on recognizing the extra stress. Although if people start yelling and throwing things, it's pretty easy to recognize that. But anytime that you have extra stress in your business, which could be because you move to new offices, it could be that business is slow and people are starting to get laid off, and expense budgets are starting to get cut, or it could be the exact opposite, to where business is booming like crazy and our old systems and procedures don't work anymore because of the added volume, and some people are not able to show up with additional responsibilities or additional workload in the way that we want them to. That can also put a lot of extra stress and pressure in the system. I encourage you to think about managing relationships and managing conversations. There's a couple of important office hours that I would encourage you to watch. Number one was 91 on emotional intelligence. I know it was office hours 91 because I recommend it so much. Emotional intelligence is really the science of personal growth, where we talk about self-awareness, self-management. We talk about social awareness and relationship management as being the four cornerstones of emotional intelligence. That's self-awareness and self-management, and social awareness and relationship management, the four cornerstones of emotional intelligence. If you want, I encourage you to ask your team to listen and watch that office hours presentation, because it will give you some common language and a common framework for you to have questions around self-control, and conversations rather about self-control and self-management, and to have conversations about social awareness, about, hey, you really didn't notice that I was stressed and you were pissing me off. What can we do to increase your social awareness? And on relationship skills. And there has been another office hours presentation that I did on structured conversations, where we talked about several different ways for you to have structured dialogue, the ways for you to have conversations when conversations are really hard. We talked about nonviolent communications or compassionate communications. We talked about the couple's dialogue. We talked about my favorite process, which is the Awakened CEO process, on saying that I have a concern about this, and this is my request, to help enter into those critical conversations with people. So think about that. Think about watching the office hours on emotional intelligence to give yourself a common framework. Think about watching the office hours on having structured conversations, so that you can always find a way to talk about that which is difficult to talk about, but which must be talked about in order for the relationship to heal more rapidly. Now, relationships, by the way, sometimes heal over time, but you can always facilitate the healing and facilitate the dialogue and the connection and the communication by having a structured conversation and by having the courage to speak up when you need to speak up, and oftentimes saying, I'm going to do this in this fashion. I'm going to talk about my feelings. I'm going to talk about the facts. I'm going to talk about what I value most in life. I'm going to talk about what my request is. When you know that structure deep in your heart, it makes it easier to enter into those conversations. Hopefully that was helpful to you. Next question.
All right. Oops. I'm starting to ramp up my business again after taking some time off for health reasons. What do I need to do to get started again?
Well, anytime that we get started on any venture, I'm a big fan of our 5-step Awaken CEO growth process, which is step number 1, your vision. Step 2, the status. Step 3, creating a plan. Step 4, gathering the resources necessary to execute the plan. And step 5, actually executing the plan. So I encourage you to start with that. What is your vision of what you want to accomplish over the next 5 years, 2 years, 1 year, and hopefully going into the next 90 days? Then what is your status? What is the capability of yourself to get started again? The hours that you need to put into it, the experience that you have. How well positioned are you with the foundation of your own personal experience and the plan of your business to actually accomplish what you want to accomplish? And step 3 is to create that plan. And I'm a big fan of 90-day growth plans, of setting out the top 3 to 5 goals, things that you want to accomplish in the next 90 days, and then staying focused on that 90-day plan week after week after week after week so that you can get some of those major things accomplished. If you're just restarting in business, it could be as simple as, I want to get my first client, or I want to re-engage with previous clients. And maybe one of your goals is to get back out there with your marketing messages, with your webinars, your seminars. Maybe it's re-releasing your books. Maybe it's going to trade shows or conferences or workshops. And in some words, get back out into the conversation, into the flow of business. At your local Chamber of Commerce meeting, at your local service club like Rotary or Elks or Lions, at your local meetup. Meetup has given, certainly here in California, and I think all over the country, wonderful opportunities, dozens of opportunities to get out and meet people and get back into the conversation. So take those first steps, get back out into the conversation, get started with your own vision, your status, your planning that goes along with that, and let us know how we can help you. You might also, by the way, want to rewatch the 5 Choices of Winning CEOs or the Business Survival Boot Camp to get some ideas on things that you might do next to really move your business forward. And speaking of moving your business forward, I'm going to take a quick time out here in the middle of our presentation to talk just a little bit about who we are and what we do. With our company, we really do focus on the whole person. Here at our company, we're both business consultants and professional coaches. As business consultants, we focus on the business. As professional coaches, we focus on the individual, helping the individual grow in the ways that they need to grow and learn the things that they need to learn so they can do the things that they need to do in order to get the success that you have. And we really do focus on helping you make sure you get just exactly the support that you absolutely need, that you can use at a price that you can afford. With our Awakened CEO system, which I think is unique in the marketplace, we focus on business growth, professional growth, and personal growth simultaneously because we see them as all being integrated. In my 15 years of being a business consultant, many times, it's not about knowing what to do or how to do it. It's about overcoming personal blocks and obstacles that somehow cause you hesitation or resistance in doing the things or learning the things that you know that you need to learn and the things that you need to do in order to be successful in business. And that's why we created the Awakened CEO system that, again, focuses on business growth, professional growth, and personal growth at all 3 levels of performance, your mindset, your methods, and your momentum to help you make the absolute fastest progress that you can in your business. We are a coaching, planning, and execution firm with a heavy emphasis on execution. I just talked about the power of execution and the importance of execution. Here's one of my favorite graphics on that. I think success in business is about 1% vision, 2 or 3% having the right plans and resources, and 97% about getting up every day and doing what you need to do to take those steps in the direction of your dreams, even if it causes you some hesitation or resistance, and actually focus on getting the job done. I've seen way too many entrepreneurs that were dreamers and not doers. And likewise, by the way, if you're just a doer and not a dreamer and not a visionary and not a planner, that can be a problem too. So we're happy to work with you however we possibly can to help you create a great vision, create a great plan, gather the resources you need to execute that plan, and to also help you in executing the plan over time. Our next office hours is going to be next week on November 7th. The topic is to be determined. I haven't decided what I'm going to talk about next week. You can go to paulsurvey.com and let me know what subjects you would like for me to talk about. And you can join me for an Awakened conversation. We were going to do it this Wednesday, November 2nd, but we postponed it till November the 9th. We're going to talk about the 10 essential elements of personal power. We're going to talk about the power of unshakable confidence, about passionate determination, about having clarity in mission and purpose, about having boundless, joyful, positive energy about you, and many other things. So you'll want to be sure to join us for that. We're going to announce group coaching and masterminding groups that we're going to start at that point in time. So do watch your emails for that. And with that, Stephanie, let's go back in to Q&A.
Okie dokie. Another question. Will a work-for-hire contract protect me as a business owner with the content or products that my contractors create for me?
Yes and no, and you do have to make sure that there is a work-for-hire clause in that, because by definition, law in the United States says that the person who creates something owns that thing unless they assign all of the rights to that to somebody else. A classic example is going to a photographer or working with a graphic artist to come up with some sort of image to represent your business. They technically own that unless in the work-for-hire contract it specifically says that the creator, the contractor, assigns all of the rights to that to whatever they create to the individual that is paying them to create it in the first place. One of the things that surprised me early in life, I was surprised 30 years ago when I went to a photographer and they took the photographs, and then I had to buy the photographs from them, and then I had to buy the reprints from them, and then I had to buy the enlargements and reductions from them because I didn't have the right to do that myself. So now whenever I work with photographers or work with graphic artists, I make sure there's a work-for-hire clause in there that I own the rights and privileges to that. Now typically, by the way, the artist will want to reserve their own rights to use that in their advertising and in their displays of their workmanship, which I certainly grant to them. If you want to put up a photograph of me on your website, if you want to put up an image that you created for me on your website to show that as representative of the work that you do, I'm okay with that. If you want to use that exact same thing for the benefit of somebody else so they don't have to pay for it like I paid for it, then I'm generally not okay with that, and we talk about that in the course of a relationship. By the way, that is not only important for photographs and for images and things like that, but also in terms of work that we do as consultants. So I oftentimes get somebody who offer me a contract that says in there so many words that anything that you do or use or create in the context of our relationship belongs to them and not to me. And that's a real problem when it comes to my intellectual property, my 5-step Awaken CEO process, the template that I've used to create financial models for 150 different companies, my strategic planning process, my business planning process, and more than a dozen other pieces of intellectual property that I have that I use in the context of my consulting engagements with people. So I always watch out for those clauses, and I will not sign a clause that has that sort of work-for-hire clause in it that says that anything I use in the context of a consulting engagement belongs to the person who hired me. Now, I want to retain that. And not only that, if I come in with a template that I use for you and in the context of a relationship, I improve my template in some way, then I still own that. That's part of my intellectual property. So I found myself in an occasional interesting conversation with somebody that says, my attorney told me that if you come in and you're whatever you do with me, I need to own, and I get into a conversation. And by the way, where that typically comes in from is engineering relationships, where you hire somebody to come in and create, and design something that you intend to bring to market, or to write software for you that you intend to use. In those particular cases, by the way, if somebody's writing a lot of software, it can be your software, and that can be a work for hire. If someone's designing a new widget that comes to market, it can be yours, and that can be a work for hire, but not in the context of consulting relationships like mine, where I come into the relationship with my processes, my procedures, my intellectual property. You don't get that for your own benefit. You can't use that in your business going forward, and you don't own all the exclusive rights to it. So hopefully I wasn't confusing the situation. It is possible under some circumstances to absolutely have a work for hire where you own the material that was created for you by the contractor. In some cases, the contractor will say, no way, no how, I own it, even though you've paid for it. And in my case, you know, I want to keep the ownership of my intellectual property that I use in the context of our consulting relationship. Hopefully that was helpful. Next question or comment.
Okay. Let's see.
Stephanie, you may be on mute.
I consider myself. I'm here. Can you hear me?
I cannot hear you if you are there. Hopefully you are there.
Yes, I'm here. Uh-oh.
Let's see.
You can't hear me?
Stephanie, I cannot hear Stephanie. I hope that other people can hear me. If you can hear me on the call, please type into the chat log that you can hear me okay, so I'll know to carry on with the call. And Stephanie, I can't hear you and you're not muted, so I'm going to look at the questions myself and see if I can find a question to ask here for the next one. Okay. And sorry for that little delay there.
Can't hear me still?
Here's another question that came in over time. I am ramping up my part-time business and thinking about going full-time. When should I pull the trigger? Great question. And it really depends on your own personal cash flow and finance needs. So for example, if you need to have $10,000 a month income to take care of your personal financial needs, and your part-time business is generating $2,000 or $3,000 of income, then know that you're going to have a $7,000 gap for a while until you're able to ramp up the current business to take care of your personal financial needs. So if you have $70,000 stored away in savings, then you have a 10-month ramp to get the business ramped up to where you can take care of your personal financial needs in the business. And here's a way of thinking about that. If you can take a look at the trajectory of your current business, and you had, say, $1,000 in revenue in the first month, and $2,000 the second month, and $3,000 the third month, and $4,000 the fifth month, I mean, you're adding revenue to the business at $1,000 a month. So if you need to take the revenue of the business from $4,000 to $10,000, it could take you 6 months to do that because it's your trajectory. Or you might think to yourself that, hey, but if I'm focusing full-time on the business instead of just part-time on the business, that I will be able to increase that even more so. So if you're focused, maybe you can ramp up the business at $2,000 a month or $3,000 a month instead of the current part-time trajectory of $1,000 a month. So we need to make sure that you factor that into your equation as well. But make sure that you give yourself enough time to ramp up the business revenue to where it can take care of your personal financial needs without you completely running out of money that you already have, or money that you can borrow, or money that you can get invested in your business from third parties. So there are, as always, there's 3 ways of financing the growth of your business: from your own funds, from borrowed funds, and through equity investments from third parties. I think what's really important for you is to have a plan about that and have goals set aside for that so that you can make a good decision as to how much money you put in versus how much you can borrow versus how much that you raise in equity capital. And that's one of the things that we love to do with our clients, is help them develop those plans, help them develop the budgets and the financial models around those plans so that they can make a really good decision about when they jump into business and how much cash reserves that they might need before they do that, to give themselves time to grow the business in the way that they need to grow the business. So hopefully that was helped, and by all means give us a call and let us know what we can do to support you there. Stephanie, are you there? It shows that you are muted, I'm going to unmute you from my end, but it still shows that you're muted from your end, and that's why we can't hear you. So I am going to take and look at our emails here and see if I can find the next question for myself. And as always, for those of you who are attending the call live, Feel
Can you hear me now?
free. Here's a great question that I see coming in. And here's the question. How do you weigh providing employees with increasing benefits within an organization that isn't making money? For example, we're considering increasing our 401 program, but it will cost the company money, and the company isn't making enough money right now. You know, that's always the best question is, well, first of all, I really appreciate your asking that in the way that you did. You want to take care of your employees, you want to take care of yourselves with a good 401 program, but you're not taking care of the other things first. So company survival is absolutely topic number one and mission number one. You may find yourself in turnaround mode. You may find yourself that your growth is stalled. And the number one thing that you can do is to stay in business. And sometimes in turnaround mode, that means cutting employees. That means cutting back product lines. It means cutting expenses. It can mean cutting compensation programs so that you can get back into profitability, so then you can reinvest in those things that you really want to invest in. And it could be that you open up, you allow people to have more benefits. It could be that you allow people to go back to training conferences and workshops. It could be that you raise the compensation program. But the first priority is to get yourself into profitability and take care of your own personal financial needs as the owner of the company, so that you can help the company survive. I did one office hours presentation on turnaround management. I don't know what the number was associated with that, but it talks about the mindset of turnaround. And we talk oftentimes in our presentations about the 5 different classes of business: the startup mode, the steady growth mode, the turnaround mode, the rapid expansion mode, and the exit mode. Only one of those is comfortable, and that's the steady growth mode. Startup mode is not comfortable because you're trying to get to financial stability as quickly as possible. Rapid expansion mode is not comfortable because everything is stressed and strained at your organization while you try to take advantage of the opportunities in front of you. Exit strategy mode is oftentimes not comfortable because you're thinking about letting go of your baby and taking care of everybody who's helped you build the business to that point in time. And oh my God, what will I do if I didn't have a chance to go to work every day? And turnaround mode is the least comfortable mode of business of all. When you say that things were working so well, but they're not anymore, what do I do to cut back? But I really like this money. I really like having this person on my team. I really like doing these things. My self-image, my self-esteem, my sense of pride and honor is built into having built the business up to where it is, and now you're telling me I have to cut it back down. And yeah, the answer is you do have to. You do have to make changes in order to survive. And much like somebody needs to put themselves on a diet and an exercise program in order to get their nutrition back in shape and get their health back into shape, you need to focus on the principles of turnaround management in order to get your business in shape. And if you're not profitable, it's not the time to invest in, I would say, extra things like 401k programs and other benefits. Let's focus on investing in marketing programs, for example, or investing in sales training programs, investing in other things to help ramp up the revenues of the business so that you can comfortably invest in benefits for your employees. And hopefully that was helpful for you. And Steffi Joe is still under mute, and I got 1256. Let's see if we can find one other question here.
Can you hear me
as I
now?
look here. I miss you, Steffi.
Hey, Paul?
I really like your answering these questions or asking me these questions here. But unfortunately, she's having technical difficulties and can't get herself off of mute.
Can anybody else hear me besides Paul not?
Let me see what she's saying here. Pardon me. Next, and I think this will be the last one for today. I have been working for 10 years on creating my service offering, and now I think I'm about ready to bring it to market. How will I know when the product is ready and when I am ready to bring this to market? That is a great question, and I do have, every once in a while, I run across somebody like that who has incredible passionate determination. I know one guy that's been working on something for 32 years. He had a vision, he had a calling, a dream 32 years ago, and he's working on bringing this product to market. And in his particular case, by the way, he's tried to bring it to market many, many times, and he keeps refining it and adjusting it and making the product better and making himself better in terms of his ability to bring it to market. I've got another client that has been working on something for 12 years, and he says 30 years, but I've only been working with him for 12 years on bringing it to market. So, it's not terribly unusual for somebody to have a calling, to have a mission or purpose, to be absolutely driven to bring something to market and to be successful in that, and it takes years and years and years and years to do so. So how do we tell when the product's ready, and how do we tell when we're ready? We are ourselves ready. How do we tell whether we're caught up in preparation paralysis or whether we really are being analytical here and being smart in delaying the entrance of our product to market until it's absolutely ready? Well, the number one thing to do, I think, is the lean startup methodology, and I encourage you to go back and listen to the office hours presentation on that, because it says that instead of making the assumption that we know who our customers are and we know what our product should look like, or that instead of making the assumption that we need to figure this out for ourselves, that we make an entirely different assumption. And the assumption is we don't know what our product should look like, and we don't know who our customers are, and we don't know what the price point is, and the only way to find it out is to go and talk with people that we think might be our customers. We go validate that we understand who our customers really are for our product or service, and we validate that we understand what features that they want in the product and how much they want to put into the product using a step-by-step, phase-by-phase lean startup methodology approach. You don't have to have the product created to get started on that. All you have to have is a description of the product. And we go out and do a concept test. Say, hey, I'm thinking about bringing this product to market, and here's what this product might look like. And are you interested at all in a product that we think will bring value in this way? And if so, let's have a conversation. And go have conversations with 50, with 60. The lean startup methodology says 100 people. Get out of the office, go have face-to-face conversations with 100 people who you think might be your customers, and learn what they can only teach you. One of my favorite things is that I want you to engage with the marketplace as quickly as possible so that you can learn the lessons that only the marketplace can teach you. And then once you have found a way to engage with the marketplace, have a relentless pursuit of financial stability until you get there and you're able to grow from your own profits. I think that's really good advice when it comes to bringing a product to market, whether you just thought of the product yesterday or whether you've been working on it for 10 years or whether you've been working on it for 30 years, is get out and talk to people who you think might be your customers and get their feedback on the design. And then create your minimum viable product and then take that to market and get the feedback as well. By the way, the most difficult thing in all of business that I have ever seen is when the marketplace only responds a little bit. There's enough market response to where we feel like there's hope for the future and a possibility that if we tweak the product just a little bit or we shift our market focus just a little bit, that we might open up that portal to massive profitability, but it just never happens. We keep tweaking the product, we keep changing our own approach, we keep improving our own positive mindset, we keep changing the market focus a little bit, and somehow it never opens up to where we're able to reach financial stability with our particular product or service. I've seen a lot of people go through that, and unfortunately, that's one of the biggest challenges in business. So at some point in time, you have to draw a line in the sand and say, this is as far as I am willing to go personally and professionally before I call it quits, to decide whether or not that this was just a matter of limited, random, enthusiastic market response but it never turned out to be enough to make it a viable business, or whether this is as much as I'm willing to put in. Of course, that flies in the face of the people that will tell you that passionate determination is the only thing that you need to be successful in business, but I'm here to tell you that it's not, that a lot of companies, you know, try like the Dickens, put forth a massive, valiant effort, and it just never turns out to be what they wanted it to be, that the market never responds in a way that they really need the market to respond in order for them to take care of their own personal financial needs. I hope that's not your case. I hope you don't get there. If you need to have that conversation with somebody, give me a call. In most cases, I really encourage people to go for it, to give that determination, because the last thing that you want is to look back a year from today and say that I did not give it my all. If I'd have only stayed in it a while longer. What you want to do is have a warrior's, a powerful, courageous, powerful mindset that says that I did my best, and I'm willing to look anybody in the eye. I'm willing to look myself in the eye, in the mirror, that said I absolutely did my best. I put everything I had into it, and it just didn't work out. And I'm ready to move on confidently and proudly to that next opportunity, whatever that may be. If we can help you talk through that situation, please give us a call. If you're interested in the ways in which we can support you in defining your vision, determining your status, creating your plans, gathering your resources, and executing the plan that we help you create so that you can build the business of your dreams, please give us a call. We are eager to have that conversation with you about how we can help you accomplish what you want to accomplish in your life. And until we meet the next time, this is Paul Hoyt and Stephanie May wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.